Happy Father's Day. I've been wondering how you guys are going to react to that, but half our room is going, why are we showing this? And dads, you get it, right? Okay. I love the line on it that says, advertisements for men's prayer meetings be like, and it's just a guy turning into a bear. So, happy Father's Day to all the men and all the fathers in the room. We love you. Moms, you got cupcakes, and dads, you got a guy turning into a bear fighting soldiers. So that's, equal opportunity. When I was a kid, we had a restaurant that was our after-church restaurant. It was called Bull and Bay. It was in the mall. It was where my addiction to hot wings was born, and salad bars for that reason, for that matter. And across from this restaurant was our arcade called The Tilt. And I don't know if any of the kids in our church know about this, but there used to be a time where you'd go to an arcade game and you'd have to pay money for it. You'd have to stand there in public in front of everybody else and play that game. And you'd pay money and you'd get one fight on Street Fighter or whatever. And I used to wander through the halls, through the alleys of that arcade, and I would look at all the games that I could be playing. My parents wouldn't buy me money for. And there's always one that I thought was so funny. That was such a fascinating idea, and it was called Primal Rage. Does anybody remember the game Primal Rage, where it's like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but instead of a person, you get to choose a monster to fight. You can be Blizzard the Yeti. I have some pictures here for you. Or Talon the Velociraptor, or Vertigo, that weird Cobra dinosaur type character. And you choose one of these guys, and then you'd fight each other like civilized people. And and then they would start fighting, and you'd go to like a normal game like this. But here's what's so fascinating. Go to the next picture. What's so funny about this game are these people down here. You see those guys down there? They're actually part of the game. They're like, you don't do anything. They just kind of stand there and dance around the whole time. But some are wearing red and some are wearing yellow. And what's funny is, because it's an arcade game, no one ever had to explain the premise of the game, but you all kind of got it. Like, you all kind of understood. There's a whole premise to it. And the idea is that these monsters are not just some monsters out in the middle of nowhere. They're gods. Blizzard, that Yeti, is the god of wisdom. Can you believe it? That gorilla is the god of wisdom. Who would have thought? And these people are all people who have chosen a side. They're wearing a certain color tunic. They're wearing jerseys of a certain color. And they got their sticks, and they're like, yeah, monster up there. And their gods will come out into the open, and they will battle each other. And the clash of the titans happens. And what happens is, one of those groups of people will watch their god fall. And the other group will go, yay, our God won. And that is what happens when the titans clash. It means something for everyone. And here's the problem. When you pick the wrong God, you do so at your own peril. But you got to pick somebody. You don't get to just not pick. And today we're seeing one of the great pivotal moments in the history of Israel in the Old Testament. We're doing our series Old School, and we get to one of the great pivotal moments called the Exodus. And it is, the best description you could give it is the clash of the titans. It is two gods, two sets of gods going up against each other, and guess what? Winner takes all. And the people of God have found themselves in a really bad situation. And it's a really kind of, turn of events type situation too, because it was all great. Everything was going wonderful. So far in the Bible, we have God, he finds a man named Abraham, and he goes, hey, you just leave your people, and I'll turn you into a great nation. And then Abraham has Isaac, and Isaac has Jacob, and Jacob has these 12 sons, and one of those sons is named Joseph. And through the interweaving in the intricacies of human evil and God's hand in human history working things out, God uses Joseph to become the second most powerful person in the government of Egypt, a world power at the day. And he saves not just his people, he saves Egypt and the Canaanites and everybody else from this brutal famine that was coming down the line. And the end of the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, has Joseph, number 2 in the land. His family, which is about 70 people, get to come live in Egypt. Everything's great. Everybody loves Joseph. Joseph's rescued everybody, and so everything's wonderful. And then, I just remembered, Bradley, I did not print out a manuscript for you guys back there, so do your best. And then you turn the page over, and very quickly in chapter 1, you read this. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them. And so they put slave masters over them to oppress them. On this page, everything's great, everything's hunky-dory. And this page, we're in deep trouble now. And they put them in the works. Build our cities for us. Make bricks. Do the great monument building. Build monuments to us. You will be the labor that build our nation. It'll be great. And the people have found themselves in a terrible spot. But the people of God continued to grow. They grew and they grew and they grew. And so the Pharaoh did another evil command. What was it? He said, every boy born to the Israelites must be thrown into the Nile to be fed to the crocs. And under this terrible reign, a boy named Moses was born. And Moses, his mother, like any mother, would not deal with that law. She couldn't bear to send her child into the river. And so her attempt to hide her child was to cover a basket with pitch and send her baby down the Nile River, just praying that God will protect him. And as fate would have it, she got picked up by the daughter of Pharaoh. And this boy, who has a death sentence from the moment he's born, is raised and grows up rich, grows up educated by the Pharaoh, the best educators in the world. He's raised in the lap of luxury. He is the child of Pharaoh. And one day he finds an Egyptian soldier beating a slave, and he kills the soldier, and he thinks that people are going to appreciate it, and no one does, and he gets run out of town. He spends 40 years in a land called Midian as a farmer, as a shepherd. And God finds him, and he says, I need you to go back to Egypt. I need you to give a message to Pharaoh. In chapter 5, the message is this. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. A guy named Sarna made a really cool connection on this story. He said, when God met Moses in the burning bush, Moses' response to meeting God was, who am I? Who am I that God would interact with me? And Pharaoh meets God, and he goes, who is God that he would try to interact with me? And it may not feel that way, but deep down inside of each of us, we all have the same choice in front of us. Am I going to look at God and go, who am I that God would interact with me? Or am I going to go, who is God to tell me this or that? Who is God to tell me I can't do this? Who's God to tell me I should do this? That choice is in every one of our lives every day. And God gets this response from Pharaoh, and you know what? He goes, I don't know this God. And I don't know why he keeps saying these people are his people, because guess what? They're actually my people. They belong to me. I'm their God. And they actually taught this. They actually taught that Pharaoh was a god. And you know what gods do to their people? They give them rules. They make commands. And he goes, I got a new command for these people. You got to keep making the same amount of bricks, but I'm not going to help you get the materials. Keep making bricks, and you got to go get the materials yourself. Just keep going. Work harder, do more. And kind of like an addiction, Pharaoh goes, hey, keep doing the same thing, but you're going to require more from you. Just keep going, keep going. This happens a lot in our lives where we go, just to get the same small amount of satisfaction, it requires more and more and more of our effort and energy. And it's running people ragged. And the people look at Moses, and Moses looks at God, and Pharaoh looks at God, and they all go, was it worth it, God? Was it worth it to make everything so miserable for the people around here? The people go, why would you do this to us, Moses? Moses goes, God, why did you ask me to do that? Everything got worse. Pharaoh goes, look, I just made everything worse for everybody. Everyone who's a human being sees the situation exactly the same way. That because God stuck his nose into Pharaoh's business, everything got worse for people. But God sees it differently than everybody else. Listen to what God... Pharaoh thought God was like everything else in his life. Something he can just get rid of by swatting his hand at it. Get away from me. I don't care about that. I'm in charge here. I'm the most powerful man in the world. I'm the one who can control everything. Just get out of here. But God views Pharaoh as a man who just walked into a room that he's not going to be allowed to just walk out of. It's like that scene in those movies. You've seen the movie. I don't know. It's not one of them. It's in a bunch of them, where a man walks into a pub and a bunch of teenage thugs start threatening him and all that sort of stuff. And they start threatening him, and he walks to the pub door, and instead of running for his life, he bolts the lock on the door. Have you seen these movies? And what's the guy saying? You think I'm stuck here with you? No. You are stuck here with me. And usually there's some sort of karate involved or whatever. And so this is what God says. God's looking at the exact same scenario that everybody else is looking at. They're going, everything just went terrible. And here's what God says. He says, then the Lord said to Moses, chapter 6, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. No, wait, let me add to that. Let me correct myself. Let me say it a little more clearly. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of his land. He will be begging for Israel to leave. He has just walked into a room that he will not be allowed to just walk out of. He has started the clash of the Titans. And this is the point where that guy from Godzilla comes out and goes, let them fight. And the big fight starts. Anybody see that Godzilla? I like that Godzilla. And it starts small. The clash starts small. It starts just Moses and Aaron and a couple of Pharaoh's guys. His magicians are in a room. There are maybe 40 people in a room. And Aaron shows up with a stick in his hand. And he throws the stick down, and it starts to wither and to shake and to recoil. And it becomes a snake. And so Pharaoh snaps his fingers, and he has the magicians come out, and he goes, hey, replicate it. Figure out what he did. Match it. Do it. And they all throw their sticks down, and their sticks become snakes. And so there's like a bunch of people who've all been able to turn sticks into snakes. And you're like, cool. And then the room's just full of snakes. Like, this is not a good plan, guys. There's a whole bunch of snakes in the room now. And Pharaoh's like, let them fight. And the snakes start fighting each other. And Aaron's snake eats every snake in the room, and then he picks it up by its tail and turns back into a staff. Which I've heard this story my entire life, and I've always wondered, is that stick like 5 times the size it used to be before? Like, is he not having to like hold it like... I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us the important things. And so, here's what happens. That snake scenario is actually not the first of the 10 plagues. You ever heard the term 10 plagues before? They're about to happen. This snake scene was like a shooting the bow across the bow. There's a shot across the bow. There's a warning shot. And what God's saying to Pharaoh is this: you think you can match me, but you are a weak version of what I am. You are a pathetic version of what I am. Oh, you turned your sticks into snakes. Great. My snake ate all those snakes. You're not going to be able to keep up with my power. And this weird word comes into play here that actually is a part of a lot of debate in Christian circles. And it's this word hard or hardened. We come across this line in chapter 7, verse 13, where it says, Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. And this word hard is going to be a really interesting word as you read. Like if you were to go home and read these chapters yourself today, you'll see this word several times. And it's a really interesting concept because the hardness of Pharaoh's heart is the thing that makes him refuse to bow to God. It's the thing that makes him refuse to listen to God. And he keeps going and asking for more. He picked this fight and he wants to finish this fight. And here's what's going to be weird about this word is because the language is going to change as the story goes. It says Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And then it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. And at some point, the Bible is going to say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, I think most people that I have conversations with, they kind of assume the Bible always says that that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. From the very beginning, it was just God hardened his heart all the way through. And there's a lot of ways you could read this, and here's where I am today, and I might not be here tomorrow, but here's where I am today. My view, my understanding of what I think is being said with the way this progression goes is that God is looking at Pharaoh and he's going, listen, you asked the question, who is the Lord? Well, that's an answer you're not strong enough to see. That's an answer you're not strong enough to experience. A day is coming when you will not have the will or the strength to harden your heart and keep this fight going. But you picked this fight, and I'm going to make sure you see it out to the end. And so at a certain point, Pharaoh's not going to be able to keep just hardening his own heart. He's going to want to give up, and God's going to go, no. You're locked in this room with me. You wanted to know who God was. Well, here he is. And he unleashes on Egypt the 10 plagues. And it starts with the Nile turning to blood. The stench in the air. All the fish are dead. No one can eat anything. It's disgusting. It's nasty. And then he moves on to the frogs. I don't know if I've actually lived through a plague in my life, by the way. I don't know if you have. When I lived in Ecuador, there was a plague that happened while I was there. When I went to visit Ecuador, everything was normal. The weeks that I went to visit maybe 3 times before I moved there, everything was normal. No mention of this at all. I get there, it's just like normal, everything's fine. About 2 months into my time there, this horde, this infestation of crickets goes all over town. Like there's millions of them. It was the grossest thing. I had a mosquito net that I never used. I never used mosquito net because they ate me up like crazy the first week and then they left me alone. So I was like, great, I don't need mosquito net now. I'm Ecuadorian. So then I never even put my mosquito net. I just draped it over me for the nights that I was living through this plague of crickets. And I found one hopping between my net and my blanket. It was the most terrible. Anyways. For an entire week, we didn't even turn lights on after it went dark. We just sat in an apartment, in a dark apartment. We're like, we can't handle these crickets. It's terrible. And that's what this is what the frogs are. I love the fact that the frog plague is not like poisonous, fire-breathing frogs that are jumping out from everywhere. They're just frogs. They're just annoying, gross frogs getting everywhere. They're in the food, they're in the blankets, they're in the backpacks, they're in the closets, they're everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a frog. And it is annoying to the absurd. And that's enough for them to go, you've got to, please, Moses, please, send them away. Ask your God to send them away. And it's just frogs. It's just frogs. It's going to get worse from here. It's going to get a lot worse. And yet just the frogs are starting to break you. And then he sends the gnats. Now, my hometown, Savannah, actually this plague never left Savannah. It's still going on. So you can experience this right now in Savannah if you want to. It's not good. You'll move. You'll move out of Savannah. The flies come. The pestilence on the livestock. All the camels and all the cows and all the food, it starts getting stricken sick. There's boils. People start getting skin diseases all throughout town. There's swarms of locusts. There's hail and thunder and lightning. There's the darkness across the land, except for where the Israelites live. For days, just so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face. Darkness across the land. And the last of them, the worst of them, is the death of the firstborn. And this last 10th plague is going to be so bad, so brutal, that no one will be able to escape it. There will be no, I'm in favor of this group and not this group. It will go for everyone in the land. And the only rescue that you will find is for those who participate in the very first one of these events called the Passover, where they have this Passover lamb that they sacrifice, and they have a meal together, and they paint the doorposts red with the blood of that lamb. And the Bible says that when God comes through Egypt that night, he will see the blood on the doorposts, and he will pass over that house, and he'll move to the next. Now, what's the reasoning for all this? Why has God got to go through all of this rigmarole? Well, here's the deal. He says in the verse before this one, in verse 12, chapter 12, verse 12, he says this: "On the same night I will pass through Egypt, and I'll strike down every firstborn, both the people and the animals. And I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt." I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. This is a battle between me and them. This is a battle between me and the best thing they've got going for them. And if you go back and you look at the different plagues, almost every one of them, this is something that's kind of hidden from us, and we don't really get to see it unless someone tells you, and once someone tells you, it makes perfect sense to you. Every one of the plagues is associated with some god that Egypt worshipped. They had a frog god. They had a fly god. They had a god of livestock and productivity. They had a god of sun that they worshipped. They had a god. They had a god of the Nile, and they worshipped these gods. And yet, this other god from somewhere else that no one's ever heard of comes in here, and he just starts taking over that god's territory. He just starts doing what he wants with that god's stuff. And then he has God, who's Pharaoh's calling himself a god. He's going, "All right, Pharaoh, I'm coming for your family. What can you do to stop me?" And every step of the way, he's going, "Man, I will judge the gods of Egypt. Because you think those people are yours? Nuh-uh. They're mine." And here's something that Christians we don't have a great way of wrestling with this part of the Bible, but non-Christians tend to have a fairly decent understanding of this part of the Bible. It's called the fear of the Lord. You ever heard of the term fear of the Lord? And you go, why is that? Why? And we always go, it's talking about awe and wonder, and and that's true. There's awe and wonder and this sort of thing. But I always get left asking the question, but then why didn't the Bible just say, have awe and wonder of the Lord? Why does it use the word fear? Like it does use the word fear. And one of the things that we have to understand about God, and this is super important, because if you and I treat God like a genie in a bottle, we will not have an appropriate relationship with God. Here's the thing with God. He is the most unruly, uncontrollable force in the universe. No one's allowed to just push him around. No one's allowed to just kind of brush past him. He is the most unruly and uncontrollable force in the history of the world. And everyone who goes up against him does so at their own peril. C.S. Lewis had a great quote for this in his book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. These kids get into a magical world where they can talk to animals and stuff like that, and they're about to meet the God character, or they've just heard about the God character in the book, and they're talking to Beaver at the time, and they ask him, they're like, "You got to go meet Aslan. He's a lion. He's going to be amazing." And the kids are kind of nervous about it. And they go, "Well, is he safe?" And the Beaver responds with, "Who said anything about safe? Of course he's not safe. But he is good. He's the king." And one of the things we have to remind ourselves when we step into this Christian life is that God's not, he's inviting us into eternal safety, like the whole timeline of our lives safety, like you don't have to worry because you're in his hands, but not like safety in the sense that there won't be things that go bump in the night. Not safety in the sense that there won't be things you can't understand or things you don't know about what's going to happen tomorrow. Like He's not like safe in the sense that everything will be calm and fine once you have a relationship with God. But He is good, though. He is calling you to a good life. A life with His calling and His glory in the mix of it. And so God does these 10 plagues, and they're brutal, and the land is just weeping and praying for these people to go. And God was right. He eventually drove those people out and said, get out of here. I don't want to see you again. And God takes His people into a place of safety, and He takes Moses up on a mountain, and He gives them the very beginnings of what's the law. They're going to live their whole nation based off this law He's about to give them. And do you know what the first law and the most important law is He gives these people? Not, now that I have you here, go make me bricks. His first law is, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. That's the beginning of it. That's the most important command, the most important aspect of your relationship with God and my relationship with God, is that we shall have no other gods beside Him. And here's the deal. We can find a lot of things in this world to be counterfeit gods for us. The Bible calls them idols. We can find a lot of things in this world that will serve as acting gods in our life. Then they will tell us what to do. They will require us to live certain ways. If money's going to be the end-all, be-all for you, you will live your life a certain way to serve that. And they'll say, go make me bricks. Go do the things for me. And then I might be good to you, but go fight for me. Pleasure. If pleasure is your God, then you'll live your life a certain way to go find that stuff. If status is your God, you will live your life in a certain way. And they'll say, go, make me bricks. Live your life this way, and maybe I'll come through for you. And here's the thing about God that is different than every other God you can find in this world, is that those gods tell you to go fight for them, and this God goes and fights for you. It's the only one that does. And then when He gets done fighting for you, He looks at you and He says, now it's just us. I want to be your God. And I want you to be my people. And I want it to be this relationship where we're here together. And it's funny because we get to this part of Exodus in chapter 20 where they start. By the way, if you've ever read the book of Exodus, David knows this, right? Exodus turns on you fast. It's nothing but an exciting story for 20 chapters, and then it's just laws. You go, wow, this is not quite the exciting story I was reading 20 minutes ago. But it's funny. You can't escape morality when you talk about religion, can you? It always pops up at some point. It's not just Christianity, it's all of it. Any religion out there you're going to put out there, they're going to come up with some sort of morality that you'll need to live into. But the basis of the Christian morality is the fact that God loves you. And He fights for you. And He has gone out of His way for you so that you can come back to Him. The New Testament says it this way. It says, you are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Do you see how it's flipped on its head? Do you see how it's not asking you to go live up to some standard God has before telling you to come to God? It's saying God already purchased you. God already bought you for a price. Now live your life a different way. And Jesus Christ did not fight the pantheon of Egyptian gods. No, He did something way worse. What Jesus did for us is 1,000 times more difficult than what Moses did for Israel. Because what God was doing through Moses, He could find a prophet, send him into the king's palace and say, here's what God says. Here's what God's going to do. And if God's going to fight you, He's going to fight you through Moses, and that's how it's going to work. But when it came time for Jesus Christ to buy you and me and to set us free from our slavery, our sins, He couldn't just send some prophet. God Himself had to come into human history. And He had to go toe-to-toe with sin and death and the grave Himself. And instead of showing the world His power to set us free, He had to show the world His humility. Instead of showing the world how strong he was, he had to show the world how much he was willing to give up. And he gave everything up. He gave everything up for you and for me. And he walked the earth, and he lived a perfect life. And he said, "Come to me, all who want rest, all who want to be set free from the mistakes and the burdens of their past and all the sins that you've carried around, and you want to just get rid of them, you want to let them go, come to me, because I have bought you for a price. And you're welcome to show up at my door anytime." Jesus Christ gave us an exodus, just like the Old Testament, an exodus of our very own. And the question is, will you and I walk through it with him or not?